Right. Evening all, and welcome into this version of Stowe Talks this evening. My name's Ashley. I'm a partner of the firm, and I'll be taking you through today. And today's session is managing your money during divorce. And very luckily, we've got a very excellent Fanny Snaith here. She is a certified money coach. How are you doing, Fanny? Okay.
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Excellent. It's very lovely to be here again.
Wonderful. And we're so glad to have you. So, you have prepared a presentation for everyone this evening. It is about managing your money during divorce. I think this is going to be interesting. So myself, I'm a partner. I deal with all this kind of stuff. So I sort of see it from one side. I'm going to be exceptionally interested to see it from yours. So if you are ready to get started, we are more than happy to dive in, and you can sort of run your presentation when you're ready.
Let me share my, I need to do my, hold on a second. Hold the line, caller. Right, let me just share. Because you know when you go to share your slides, everything changes, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You'll be on the left side.
You think you've got it all absolutely sorted, and then all of a sudden it just goes awry. So we're going to do this. What about that? Can you see that?
I can see it. I think we're good to go.
We're winning. We're on to a winner. Okay. So we're talking about managing your money during divorce. So I think, and what we put actually on the Eventbrite thing was, let me move that out of the way. That's better. We're going to talk about the role of money in divorce, how to navigate the emotions tied to finances, which is one of the big parts. And then there are going to be some practical steps to divide and rebuild your life. Because the thing is, I think we all know that money plays a really significant role in divorce proceedings. They say that one of the major causes of divorce is arguments over finances. So why shouldn't it continue actually into the divorce itself? Financial matters, just to run it home, can really be a big source of conflict. And they can be very complex as well. And money isn't just a practical consideration. It's really deeply intertwined with our personal values and our life planning. And it's very likely that you, the viewer, the person who is in this situation, haven't had communication or any kind of partnership around finances up until now anyway. So it can possibly be conflict on top of conflict. So I'm going to focus this session, I'm not going to talk about the legal stuff, because that's what Stowe are here for. And I don't want to get into the legal nitty gritty, one, because I certainly don't know as much as my peers here, or my colleagues here. And secondly, I think for me, the most important thing is your approach. So that doesn't mean to say that I'm not going to give you practical advice, but I am going to talk more about the emotional impact of money, because I believe that is possibly what's affecting you more, even if you don't know it at the moment. Because things like divorce and separation, even we know they carry an emotional weight, but they're often reflect very much deeper issues like trust and fairness, or power dynamics in the marriage or the partnership. And the key is to approach the financial discussions during divorce with clarity and fairness and a long-term perspective, because obviously what happens afterwards is really important. So thinking of the role of money in divorce, it's really quite a lot of what I'm not going to talk about, to be honest, because I'm not going to talk about the division of assets, alimony and spousal support, children's support, hidden assets and financial dishonesty at the moment, the cost of divorce and the impact on future stability. But what I am going to talk about is the emotional impact of money, and also some practical ways that you can, once you've got your emotions in check, or at least guided in some sort of way, understood in some sort of way, then there's some practical steps, because wouldn't be a good money coach without putting that bit in there as well. First of all, though, just a little bit is like, why on earth should you listen to me? I mean, who is she spouting on about money? So like I've said, I'm Fanny Snaith, and I offer money coaching and financial therapy. I've been doing this job professionally now for 9 years. I don't know where the time went. I work with individuals and I also work with couples, which is a very interesting part of my work. I have online courses, I run DIY courses, I run financial wellbeing sessions, mainly in Gloucestershire. I've done public speaking and online talks. And obviously, I consider myself to be good with money. It wasn't always that way, but I have a portfolio of funds and shares and savings, and I've got property, and I invest in property, and I angel invest as well. And then to give me some kind of clout professionally, I am a certified money coach, and I'm also a cognitive hypnotherapist and an NLP master practitioner. And over the time, I've built wealth from a pretty small income, because I've worked from home, being part-time, being with the girls for the last 25 years, but I've managed to build a significant amount of wealth in that time through mindset and practical knowledge, and I love to share that with you. I've had about 3,500 people pass through my work, and I love to meet my clients where they are. There's no cookie cutter approach, which is again why it's difficult approaching a subject like this, because obviously you're all very different, and money is still that very difficult topic that nobody likes to talk about anyway. It's not exactly sexy. People apparently like talking about sex and death before they want to talk about money. And again, I'm a firm believer that just sitting down and learning about financial literacy, just learning about what numbers to put in what boxes, just doesn't work. And I've proved it many, many times with my one-to-one work with my clients. So I want to try and approach this session to help money first and foremost be your friend, because I'm a firm believer that money is unlimited. I know that can be a hard one to grasp, but money is unlimited in the world. But if we continue to treat it like our worst enemy, and when it does come to us, we ignore it and don't look after it well, we don't nurture it, and yet we expect it to hang around and grow and flourish. So one of my first steps is to actually approach this to say, let's just be kind to money and let's try and think about it, at least for today, in a different way. And maybe, just maybe, that would be wonderful for me, my heart would sing, is if you can go away from this session and think about things in a different way going forward. That would just be brilliant, obviously to your advantage. That would be the plan. So let's crack on. The role of money in divorce. Okay, money's never just about numbers, never, ever, ever. It often represents things like security and power, independence, and also obviously future opportunities. And when we go through a divorce, these aspects of money, they feel heightened, bigger, and create significant emotional responses. Now, I'm going to put my hands up and I'm going to say I'm not divorced. However, before the age of 10, I watched my mum go through 3 divorces, all about money. And they were very ugly and they were very bitter. So I have the experience of it of a child. I don't have the experience of it of an adult, but it was probably seeing those experiences that one of my biggest things that I worked toward was not ending up getting divorced, and I'm not yet. So we'll see. But don't get me wrong, the work where I'm going to show you today, I have gone through, because Neil and I have come to divorce so many times because of money, and it hasn't been easy, but we've done it, and so therefore I do know this work works. But yeah, I just wanted to share that with you. So thinking about money as security, money for so many of us, we all go, why do we want money? Well, it makes me feel safe. It gives me some kind of stability. It gives me some kind of certainty. And during divorce or separation, the loss of those shared financial resources can feel like losing a safety net. So that automatically puts us into that kind of fear space. And it's leaving you uncertain about your future, which is, obviously difficult to take on board, especially with everything else that you're going through. And what about money and power? In my experience, one side of the partnership or the marriage tends to look after the money more than the other. I very rarely meet a financially balanced couple in any way. So in a situation where you've got a relationship where one partner manages the finance, the other might feel a lack of control, and divorce can amplify that massively, and again creating a feeling of vulnerability. So let's take that on board and invite you to accept how you feel. And actually, I guess what we're trying to do here is we're trying to open the door to dig into the feelings a little bit more so that you can be conscious and aware of them, because I'm a firm believer that when you can be conscious and aware of how you feel, you can then take steps to make yourself feel better or to move forward in a different way. If you've got fear about how you're going to afford your lifestyle in the future, that's obviously going to be a thing. Guilt about decisions that you've both made that might actually impact your children, or your ex-spouse. And let's think, anger over what may or might not or has happened, or perceived unfairness or actual unfairness in dividing the assets. And all of those things are real. So when you think that you've got this absolute mush of stuff going on in your brain that seems so difficult to decipher, how do we start to separate it out? How do we start to take stock of that? When I was at the Money Coaching Institute, I learned about 8 money types. I have actually talked about them before, but I'm going to talk about them again. And it's a really clever way of us being able to decipher the feelings that we have. And when we can understand the feelings that we have and also be present to the feelings that we'd like to have, we can form some kind of bridge to get from where we don't want to be to where we want to be. So I guess what I'm saying to you is, I don't know if any of you have seen the film Inside Out. Yeah? Okay, so there's Inside Out 1, Inside Out 2. They're just the best films ever. But what they basically are about is they've got this girl, this young girl, and she's got all of her emotions depicted inside her brain. And as the viewer, you're very much viewing the movie from inside her head. And it's showing all the different emotions play out. And I've got a system here, which I'm going to rattle through for you, of the 8 money types. And the 8 money types are 8 fictional characters who all think and behave very differently when it comes to money. And we have all of them within us. All of us do have all of them. So whether they're negative or positive, you can't be without one of these. They exist within you. And the trick is to learn when they're coming out to play. In my work with my clients, I tend to frame our money work together as a financial adventure. And I describe the 8 money types as being passengers on a bus. And I give them this financial bus, this tour bus to go on their financial adventure. And the money types are all sitting in different places of the bus. And depending on situations that come up, there are different drivers. And there was a famous quote by Ayn Rand, who's a writer sort of from the 30s, I think. And she said, money is simply a tool and it'll take you wherever you wish to go, but it will not replace you as the driver. So the question is, well, what driver? So these 8 money types can be or not be drivers. So let me run through them. And maybe while you're listening, you can sort of think, oh yeah, I recognize that, or that sounds just like my partner, that sounds just like my mum, my colleague. Just try and sort of seem to recognize them. So just give you a quick shout out as to who they are first. We've got the innocent, the victim, the warrior, the martyr, the fool, the creator artist, the tyrant, and the magician. I'm just going to quickly spin through them. The innocent is really the sort of the money child, ostrich, head in the sand. everything's gonna, everything seems fine. I don't really like looking at bank statements. I've never been any good with money, but I'll sort it out at some point and I'll look at it tomorrow, sort of thing. But very trusting, very indecisive. I mean, I think the money child sums it up. And really their primary fear is like abandonment and being on their own, just feeling very on their own with money. And obviously this can be a really, really, really great case for bringing the innocent out and putting them at the driver's wheel when you're not sure what you're doing. So it's just to recognise that if you feel that. Then we've got the victim, praying to blaming others. God, if only my parents had taught me about money, it'd be great. Or they've been doing the finances forever and I don't even know anything and I can't get into the gas account and I can't do this, that and the other and all these kind of things. And basically it's everybody else's fault apart from my responsibility. And again, the victim has a very valid voice. And we're not saying we push the victim down. We bring them out and go, what is it you want to say? Come on, let it all, give it all to me. Let's have a proper rant over it. So that's the victim. And then we've got the warrior. We like the warrior because the warrior is the money type of action. And the warrior is one that we do want to be in the driving seat most of the time, because the warrior is going to think things through and it's going to just be powerful, loyal, competitive, or goal-orientated, financially successful, confident and wise. So we want that. So keep an eye on this one. And that's when you suddenly go, well, I'm just going to have to sort it out another way, or I'm going to have to make a phone call, or I'm going to have to go down to the shop or whatever. Those things. Martyr. So this is the martyr. The martyr is the one that seems to look after everybody else before themselves. And I'm guessing when we talk about money in divorce, one of the things that can happen is as long as the children are okay. That if anything that I do, I'm not going to think about myself. I'm not going to think about my own feelings. I'm just going to look after the children. And I think that's great, very, that's lovely. But it is important to put your own oxygen mask on first before you look after everybody else. Because if you're not right, then how are the children going to be right? So I heard Ashley say in his session last week, one of the worst things that you hear is when people come and they go, I just wanted to make it all, so I just want it to be easy. I just want it to just be a smooth thing. And part of that can be martyr, looking after other people, just keep it all smooth. It can also be a little bit of victim speak, because, I just don't want, it's too difficult for me. It can be a bit of innocent as well. But the martyr is quite interesting in the fact that it can also turn the other way and go, well, if I don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. And you get disappointed in other people's performances, so you take more on yourself, so you don't delegate. So the martyr can have some great attributes, but also the critical side and judgmental side can come out. Perfectionism as well. Resentment is a really great one for the martyr. So it's just to watch out for that one. The fool. Well, the fool leads a roller coaster of a money life, really. Sort of goes for, will jump at something without doing due diligence. Due diligence is not their middle name. This could be highlighted during divorce. But again, I'm just picking out the divorce topic here. This happens to all of us all of the time, that these money types can play out. But really, a lot of financial irresponsibility. I mean, what have I think one of the things my mum did, she said, well, I'm just going to spend as much money as I can, so not so much of it is split. Which was, mixture of victim, fool, all that kind of stuff. So making decisions without really thinking it through. There's the happy-go-lucky part, which probably isn't going to be happening so much during divorce, but happy-go-lucky side, which is where you just sort of cast things off and go, it'll be fine, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. So beware of that one. And then we've got the creator artist, the conflict, very often internally conflicted, having a love-hate relationship with money, saying, oh, it's not important, I won't bother with it, it's just, I don't need much. And then sitting there going, well, actually, I do quite want money, but then, other people have got more than me. And so there's an internal conflict with it. But again, the creator artist has a lovely side, has the creative side, which is very nice. And if you can be creative financially, really good. Tyrant is the one that is all about money. I hear a lot of people talking about narcissism now within divorce. It seems to be a very popular word. And the typical tyrant is, I guess, what we're calling the narcissist, where everything is about themselves, everything's about the money, wouldn't hesitate to throw somebody under the bus to save themselves and make themselves look better. But underneath, the narcissist, the tyrant, whatever you want to call them, what they really want is not what money can buy. What they want is to have true love and true respect. And unfortunately, they tend to go about it the wrong way. There's a big, deeper discussion about all of that in partnerships, which I can't go into now. But I think when we have a partner like that, it's very easy just to take it on face value. Whereas I honestly believe that behind the scenes, there's a huge amount going on for the other partner. And I'm not necessarily saying that you should lay down and roll out the red carpet and be understanding for them, but I think that a certain amount of understanding can help your relationship better whilst you're going through that process, if that makes any kind of sense. And then finally, we've got the magician. Well, you definitely want the magician in the driver's seat, because the magician is the money type of faith, trust and balance. And it's where they've got the wisdom, they're very conscious of what's going on. The magician will have experienced all the other money types and learnt how to sort of like step aside from the negative behaviour and embrace the positive behaviours of the others. So you'll notice that some of the other positive behaviours in the others, even from the martyr, the wise and generous, is included in here. The magician is the one that basically works their way to consciously coming to a decision that is based in self-trust. I think that's something that I say, that when you're able to make a decision, you make it from your heart as well as your head. So it's about really thinking, what am I actually doing here? What do I want to achieve? And we'll see this in a minute when I'm going to go through the healthy communication framework. But it's a really fantastic lot of traits to have, these long ones on the list, but I'm not going to read out. So what do you need to be an excellent money manager, either now, anytime, or in divorce? You want the magician, the warrior, and the creator artist. And I put a score of 50% active because I actually have a quiz on my website called the Money Type Quiz, which I invite you all to try. There's no obligation. I'm not going to spam you with emails afterwards, but I'm very happy to have a look at your results and chat them through with you at a 30-minute free consultation, should you like to. And to get to the quiz, you just go to fannysnaith.com and it's there. So do feel free to do that. But how do you use these money types going forward? What can you actually do today? Well, one, you can learn more about them by taking the money type quiz, because when you get the results, you get really full descriptions of how they work from me. But when you are starting to feel triggered, anxious, not completely calm, or actually even if you are feeling completely calm, ask yourself, which money type's in the room? Or which one's at the wheel for me now? If you feel that you've been sitting there blaming the world and his wife for your situation, it could well be victim. Fine, that's okay. If you find that you're waving papers around and saying, well, I don't do this, nobody else is, maybe the martyr's in the room. If you're sitting there and you are going through the bills, working out how much it's going to be for you, that's going to be very much warrior. So just to be conscious and thinking about it, that's what I'm trying to encourage. And it's, again, you're at the beginning of this journey, so it takes a little bit of work to do it, but it's quite good fun. So identify the money type that's at the wheel today. And it changes. I wake up in the morning sometimes and I've got to do something that I haven't done before. And my innocent comes out massively. Don't know what I'm doing. I'm not good enough. I don't know where to start. Don't know what, all those kind of things. So we all have it. So if you are finding that you've got one of the negative money types at the wheel, that's the time to go, Okay, yeah, definitely in victim mode right now. Definitely, or innocent at the wheel. And don't forget, we can have a nice heady mix of two of them. You know, oh, it's all gone wrong. What do I do? You can have two different types of the wheel as well. Innocent, fool partner together really nicely. Heady mix. But if you just feel that you're not happy about something, just think which type's going to be. Where can I bring my warrior in from? How do I bring my magician in here? And it's just a case of practice, really. So remember, the money types are not who you are, they're where you are. Okay, so that's one thing, you and your emotions. But clearly, you have absolutely no responsibility or control over your partner's emotions. And you never will have, and you never have had. So what we can do is, the best thing we can do is we can learn how to communicate in a way that keeps things calm and creative, and you've obviously probably got a legal term for this. What's the term I'm looking for? Where you can get a good result, that you can get a good outcome from it. So let's talk about communication first of all, and I'm going to talk about the healthy communication framework, actually officially known as the non-violent communication framework, but I'm not too keen on that title, so we changed it to healthy communication framework. But it's based on a model invented by a chap called Marshall D. Rosenberg back in the 60s. And you can buy a whole book on this subject, but I've studied it reasonably closely, especially in the respect of couples, because that's what I use in my work. And I've boiled it all down into a reasonably easy thing to understand. I think the thing to remember is that we want to resolve and avoid conflicts by observing what we're feeling and what we need and what we request to be the outcome. Because we've all got wants and needs, and this tool helps it so that everybody's needs are met. It's not about being nice, it's about being real. It's not about getting others to do what we want, it's about creating a connection, an understanding, so that we can avoid rows and arguments and actually move forward with stuff. So the question I'm going to ask you is, do you speak jackal or giraffe? Which might sound a bit weird, but bear with. So the jackal, if you think about a jackal is quite a low level animal. I don't mean low level in intelligence or anything like that. I'm talking about a low level as in it's quite small, okay? And it sort of tends to put its head forward like this, right? And it does this and it snaps like that, right? That's known as jackal speak. And I'll give you an example of some jackal speak. And this is an actual way that Neil and I used to communicate. So the credit card bill used to come in and I'd have a look at it and I'd go, oh God, it's way higher than it's supposed to be. And I might have flown out into the kitchen, waving the paper in my hand and gone, Neil, have you seen this credit card bill? It's massive. It's way over normal. It's way, so much. What have you been buying now? What have you been buying? Now, that kind of approach is blaming, criticising, judging, and demanding. And it's also saying what's right and what's wrong. And with that approach, he's going to get backed into a corner and he has nowhere to go. He's absolutely trapped. There's nothing for him to do. It's stonewalling. It's literally just going to, there's no way out of that situation, really, without an argument. And what's going to happen is that I am saying to him, I matter more in this, and he is staying there and he is automatically going to be feeling defensive. He's probably going to feel frightened because I've come out all guns blazing. I'm accusing him of stuff. I've taken the power away from him, and that can hurt his. It can really do damage to somebody because they remember this stuff. So nobody's needs are met. So let me introduce you to the healthy communication framework way, which is just this, which is great. And we're going to do giraffe speak. Now, the reason that we call it giraffe speak is for two reasons. One, because the giraffe has a really long neck and it can see things from above and it can look at the whole picture much more easily than the jackal, who's down in the grass, down in the weeds. And we also have to remember that the giraffe has the biggest heart of the land mammals, which is really nice. It weighs up to 25 pounds. Just let you know that. So what we're doing here is we start off and we use a framework for the conversation, and we do it like we observe the facts. Then we talk about our feelings and our emotions. And then we think about what we need. And then we think about what we request. So we're saying, what am I really reacting to here? What's the intention behind me opening my mouth? What feelings are alive in me in this moment? What do I need? What's my need? What's needed behind my immediate desire here? And am I making a clear request? And that is not what I just did by flying in all guns blazing. So let's think about how it might go a little bit better using the framework. So first of all, I might say to him, Neil, have you got a minute? Is it a good time to talk? So it's actually giving him the chance to say what space works. And then I'm saying, hi Neil, oh great, thank you for giving me the time. I've just been looking at the credit card bill and I've noticed that it's much higher than usual. And I'm feeling a bit anxious about it really, and concerned, because it isn't what we agreed on the spending. And so we're in this situation now. And bearing in mind where we are, I need to feel secure and confident about our financial situation. So can I request, please, can we sit down and go through this bill together and work out what's happened and discuss how we can manage these expenses better in the future? So it's an observation, what I'm noticing, what I've observed. Oh my God, I've looked at the credit card. It just is what it is, without going into fight, flight or freeze and flying off the handle. It's made me feel a bit wobbly. I need to not feel wobbly. That's my thing. So I'm asking then, can we go through it? It's calming and it creates some kind of calm. Now, look, I understand that when you're already in a conflict situation, many of you might be going, yeah, you know what, you're having a laugh. You're having a giraffe, Fanny. However, my request to you is to just try, to just bear it in mind. Because if this discussion can just create a little pause between the beginning of conflict, before conflict starts, brilliant. But what you want to do is you want to have a conversation whereby what you're doing is you're observing, you're connecting, you're feeling, you're requesting, it's honest, and it's allowing for some transformation. It's allowing for some change that can last. So it's a really effective way for saying what's on your mind and in your heart. It's simple, takes a little bit of practice, and the challenge is to use it in the heat of the moment, which I understand is not always possible. So last resort, and this is another crazy thing, which honestly, when I was told this by the Americans, I cringed inside, but I've seen it work so many times, that if in a moment of peace, if in the moment when you're saying, let's try and do this as amicably as possible, you can set up a system whereby you both do have a word or an animal noise. I mean, that's what the Americans did, and we had to make them practice it. And it was just like, oh God, it's just so not British. But, like meow or kss, or moo or whatever, right? I know it sounds ridiculous, but if you can get some kind of system that when something is, you can feel the things boiling up inside of you, do that. And that's a sign for the other person just to back off. It's just a thought. Try it. You don't know until you try. Okay, that's the end of communication. Practical steps. How are we doing for time? We all right?
Absolutely fine, Fanny. Yeah, we've got another half an hour, so you take as much time as you need to.
Brilliant. Okay, practical steps. So now we get the pens and pencils out. I think what happens when I work with people who are in divorce is I tend to be working with one of them. Therefore, our job is to prepare you for your future, to be as strong and as resilient as you possibly can be. I'm not working with both of you, so this is very you focused now. I'm not thinking, I mean, whether your partner does this as well, great, but this is about you. So from a personal point of view, I think the first thing you want to do is you want to get as much information as possible. Access to accounts. So the thing is first of all, is to start thinking about what exists in our financial life. And if you've been the partner who hasn't looked after the finances, clearly this is going to be more of a challenge. And maybe this is where the communication framework comes in. And it's not like, well, you better give me access to all those accounts. It's, I reckon I don't have access to the accounts. That makes me feel like I'm not really in the full picture. Oh, by the way, when you use the communication framework, try to avoid saying, you make me feel. Because again, that's accusatory. Try to say, that makes me feel. So I don't have view, I realise I don't have view of all the accounts. By you having them, you make me feel, not that. That makes me feel that I'm not in the full picture or I'm able to get control of what I need to know. What I need to do is I need to be able to work out how I'm going to sort this mess out for me on my own. So please, can we sit down and you go through the accounts with me? And again, whether that happens or not, I don't know. But that's the first step. And then we cross each bridge as we come to it. So getting access to accounts, first of all, is going to be your first step. That's your first list. Pension information. And I'm sure Stowe are going to help you with a list of these things to do. Access to investments. Make sure you know where your driving licence is, your passports, any wills, lasting power of attorney, etc. And maybe it's time, if you don't have a solo bank account, to set one up. So you're going to be thinking about setting up your own bank account, possibly having your own credit card, depending on your spending habits and how much you trust yourself with one. You're going to be starting to look at your credit score as well, which you're going to need to have up there, which again is a topic all on its own, to be honest. And then it's about thinking about how you're going to manage the money. And I'm going to basically go through a system that I use for all my clients and the system that I work for myself to give you a guide on how to start. Because, you can open up any website and you'll go, well, make a list of your income and then make a list of your expenses and then take one away from the other. And then you've got a budget. And it just doesn't work. So I'm going to go through it a bit in a way that hopefully it makes a bit more sense to you and makes it a bit more workable. Because one of the things that I find with most people is, like in businesses, the key is cash flow. You need to have cash flow all the time. You don't want to have spikes where one minute you got money that you go, oh great, we've got loads of money, let's go and have a holiday. And then when it comes to later in the year, there's no money there and you need to all of a sudden pay for Christmas. So this topic, this way I'm doing this, solves this. And it's called the money mapping system, because I don't like the word budget, because remember, we're on a financial adventure and you don't have budgets on an adventure, you have a map. So I'm talking about mapping out your finances, giving every pound a purpose. So let's think about money and how we use it. So first of all, we have income, wherever that's coming from, money coming in. If we don't have that little bit, then none of this is going to work. So that's the first thing, is actually having some income from somewhere. And then we're going to think about, what do we do with it when we've got it? And we're either going to spend it, save it, invest it, lend it, or give it away. Or use it to pay off debts. And then what I want us to do is to give every single pound a purpose, so that we can measure our spending and we can have no waste. So first of all, we've got to work out what we're spending, using our money on. And we can sit there and just start thinking about it and start with a blank sheet of paper and start trying to remember all the things that we spend money on. But I will challenge you. I mean, I don't know what your mind's like, but my brain, I certainly wouldn't remember everything. So it is a case of going through bank statements or using a very clever app that I use called Money Hub. I'm going to show you a bit, not going to show you it in detail, but I use an app called Money Hub, which is where you can, let's say, for instance, you've got a couple of bank accounts or a bank account and a credit card, and instead of having to go through each statement to see what you've been spending your money on, it all gets combined in one place and puts in chronological order, so it makes it a lot easier for you to do. And it's called Money Hub. I highly recommend it. It's free for the first 6 months, and then it is a whopping £16 a year, which I think is well worth it. Very good. And it's a Bristol-based firm, which is quite nice for those of you who are local. Right, so we're not going to do it like that. What we're going to do is we're going to use categories. And actually, if you choose to use Money Hub, and I get no affiliate from Money Hub, I don't have anything invested in them. If you use Money Hub, you might like to use the categories that they use, in which case you've then got a piece of paper and a app that matches. So you've got a map, and then I call Money Hub my compass because it helps me to keep to my plan. So there is some categories. Obviously, they're not all of them. They didn't fit nicely on the slide, but you're going to add in other ones like what else might you put in there? General shopping, or I don't know. I can't think of them now off the top of my head. Holiday. Oh, there's holidays. I can't remember. Yeah. Anyway, doesn't matter. But you're going to have more than those. There's usually about 12 or 13. But start making lists under each of those categories, and then work out how much each of them spend per month. Now, things like Christmas. I know Christmas happens in December, but actually, we need, if we're going to have a smooth cash flow, we want to start thinking about it in January. Because if you spent 1,200 quid, let's say, on Christmas, if you were to, you can either wait until December and then try and find 1,200 quid, which is why people then put things on the credit card. Or if you were able to set aside £100 a month, you'll have your money by the end of the year. Ta-da! And if you do that for everything, it smooths things over. And I'm going to show you how to do it. So, if we separate our money into 3 different things, 3 different types of spending. So we're going to think about not just what we spend our money on, but also how we spend our money. So we've got everyday spending, we've got automated spending, and sometimes spending. Everyday spending are things like food, groceries, coffees out, things that we're going to have a pot for how much money we are allocating to spend, or a budget, if you like, for that amount of money. But it's likely to be made up of a number of transactions during the month. So it's not just a one spend. And we're not exactly sure how much we're going to spend. Automated spending is easy. It's all of your direct debits, standing orders, and subscriptions, those cheeky little subscriptions that find themselves onto the credit card bill. So things like rent, gas, electricity, mortgage, all those kind of things. Those are your automated spending. And then we've got sometimes spending, which are the things we talked about before, which you know you're going to have to spend money on, but they're not regular payments every month. So holidays, Christmas, birthdays, haircuts, glasses, dentist, car tax, unless you're paying it monthly, and all those MOT, all of those kind of things. And there's sometimes spending. So let's go back to where we were before. Right, those are the categories. If we're then going to separate them out again, we might see which pot each one's coming from, because we're going to have a different pot or a different bank account, or if you're on a challenger bank, you can actually have pots and spaces. They're really clever banking there, and some of the other standard banks are starting to do it as well. We actually divide it into how you spend your money. So our everyday spending are going to be those things. Automated spending. So if you were to put together all of your direct debit, standing orders and subscriptions, you would know exactly how much every month those are going to be. But then you can also go, well, how much am I looking on bills? I'll show you a little paper version in a minute that gives you an idea of what it looks like. We must include savings and debts because they're just as important as well. and we automate those as much as possible. And then each pot can either be a space, like I said, on one of the challenger banks, like Monzo or Starling. But if you have a separate account, and then you can divide the money into the different accounts, so that when you look at your bank, your main bank account, which would be your everyday spending account, you haven't just got everything in there sloshing about and thinking, I've got loads of money at the beginning. I mean, look at a student, right? They get given that huge, great student loan at the beginning of the term and are expected to manage it. It's crazy. Money likes boundaries. It does. It likes to be separated and regulated. And we have control of the tap rather than it sitting there going, here I am, spend me. Because money wants to be used, right? Money wants to move and it wants to flow. And we are the ones that go, yeah, get that, thanks money, but I'm the regulator here. I'm the one that's in control. So, as soon as money comes in, you separate your money into the three pots. So you know that you're going to have all your bills covered, you're saving for the sometimes spends, and you've got money there for the things that you need now. So quick summary, you've got your pots. Bank account 1 is your everyday spending, where you've got all your unknowns, but sort of boundaried in there. Number 2, automated spending, which is all your things that just happen automatically. And the more you can automate, the better, because it saves you time and energy. And then your sometimes spending are pots that you're trying to save up for use in the future, so that you really are living your life, your financial life, on the front foot. I call it front foot spending, because you think, yep, Christmas, got that's doing that, stay with there. Money going into that pot for when the dog has to go to the vet, yep, that's good. Going to the hairdressers in March, yep, just about got that money there. And you just start to build a real feeling of security, and much as we don't have certainty, but we have more certainty than not. I haven't also spoken about building an emergency fund. I don't like calling it an emergency fund. I call it a POM fund, which is a peace of mind fund, but that's all part of the savings. But with the limited amount of time that we have today, there's only a certain amount that I can keep in. But we all want cash buffers, so that in case of things happening that we don't want to happen, then we can have money there to help us. So, tracking our money over time. If you use one of the challenger banks, which are one of these two, Starling or Monzo, they will provide you with a main account, and then along that you can set up, I think it's up to 100 spaces or pots that you can siphon money off into and use them as very clever things. You can also pay directly from pots now in some instances, especially if you're using your phone, which is very clever. It's very, very clever. I mean, Grandma, for those of you who are old enough, this is the same sort of thing as Grandma having all the pots on the mantelpiece and putting money away for the rent and the gas and all that kind of. It's very similar to that, only you can do it all on your phone. And it's a fantastic thing to teach children to do. As soon as they can get their Challenger bank account, I would really encourage this. Money Hub is the app that I was talking about. And if you're still living in the arc ages and you're using a lot of cash, then you need to track that too. And no, you can't get away with it that if you suddenly going, oh, well, I take £500 a month out in cash, it just sort of go, you need to work out where it goes. It's important. Cash withdrawals in our family is like 30 quid a month. And there's a certain amount that maybe you don't have to bother about. You could just put it down to coffees. But when you'll start talking into significant sums, you really need to log it. If you're going to draw this out on a piece of paper, it would look like something like this, right? So you'd have the list of bills. Obviously, this would be probably longer. And this is a little bit out of date as well. Don't look at the figures because things have gone up quite significantly since I did this. But look, you put per month here, rent, 600, council tax, and they're all automated spends. So you know exactly how much you're spending. You can see what you're spending, so it gives you a full total at the bottom here. but you can start to get a picture of how much you're spending in each pot as well. So it's like a map. I call it a map because it's like a grid reference, right? Cross and down. And here, look, here's showing that you're putting some into the sometimes spending. So you're going to put £30 away for when you want to redecorate the living room, £15 a month for the gardening in the summer, if we get any summer, etc., etc. You get the idea, okay? And obviously you can do all of this on a spreadsheet. So I hope that that's been a bit helpful on those topics. We've looked at becoming aware of our emotions first and foremost, giving ourselves permission to feel the way that we feel, but trying to use a framework which helps us not just feel overwhelmed and confused, that we can actually look and see what is driving, the money types as well, by the way. I often cross out the word money. They literally, you can wheel them out into any area of your life. So it's a way of just going, yeah, what do I feel? And again, you can teach them to your kids, teach them to your partners, whoever they are helpful. Please feel free to take the money type quiz. Then if we can look at those emotions, the money types, and then use the healthy communication framework, it could give you a chance of being able to get all the information that you need and start to build your life with much less conflict. And that has to be a good way of doing things. And then if you start to map your money out, really making a very clear picture of what it's going to look like, that's going to help you move forward into a space that is very likely at the moment unknown. But the more that you can become clear on what is happening now, then you can then take it forward into the future. Whereas if you just step into your future and go, well, now I might as well start doing this, I would say do it as soon as possible. In fact, people who are in relationships who aren't getting divorced, I honestly encourage people to take full responsibility. It's not 50-50s. What is it? This thing that a relationship is 50-50. A relationship is not 50-50. Money is not 50-50. Anything like this is not 50. It's 100% from both parties. And if you can take 100% responsibility for your financial future, I think that's a good start, or at least think that you're going to try. I know it's difficult. I do know it's difficult. One thing that I wanted to just say before I go, if you are ready, or if you would like some more help, or if you're ready to maybe learn more about this, I run a course called My Money Makeover. It's online, but we have sessions online once a week. It's a small group. This one I'm doing, which is starting on the 12th of February, is just for the ladies this time. It's first time ever, but that's the interest that I've had. It's a fully guided program. I've got videos on my website that you follow, but you also get the live interaction twice a week from me. We talk about the money types. We really open our hearts and talk about our money stories, what our parents were like, what we've learned from our parents and inherited. We talk about how angry we might be with somebody or something and get that out into the open. And then we also, at the same time, we are doing the practical work for ourselves. We're learning how to do it. We have a WhatsApp group. It's a really lovely, powerful community. And as I said, I'm starting on the 12th of February. The price is $550 for the whole course, and you keep the tools forever, which is good. And every time I update them, you can have an update as well. I'm calling this one the Young Gloucestershire edition because Young Gloucester is my chosen charity this year. I'm doing a trek for them to the Himalayas in October, and I will be donating 25% of the fee to Young Gloucestershire, and I will then be matching it with my own money. And the reason this charity is so close to my heart is that there are a lot of young people out there that have not had great beginnings in life. They've really had a rough time, and I've been volunteer mentoring for them for 2 years. And the beauty of the Young Gloucestershire scheme, the volunteer mentor scheme, is that you get a whole year with a young person, which I think is just so valuable to create lasting change. So if you would like to join, that's what's going to happen to some of your money. I've put my phone number on the bottom. You can WhatsApp me, which is probably the easiest way, or feel free to email me, or if you take the quiz, you'll be on my radar. And if you ask for a consultation from it, we can set up a call and we can have a chat to see if it's the right thing for you, or just to go through your money type results. So there we go. That's it. Right, I'm going to stop sharing. And then hopefully we've got time for some questions. What do we think?
Well, first things first, so interesting. Thank you, Fanny. It's just so interesting to see it from the other side. As you can imagine, a lot of my job is very much people are already at loggerheads, and I'm trying to deal with dealing with that. And that communication doesn't come a part of it. I write to solicitors, we do all the sort of slings and arrows and that kind of thing. And that communication has already broken down. But to see your tips as to how to stop that from progressing and how to manage those things to maybe stop those arguments from coming up. And, a lot of divorce does come down to sometimes money stress.
Yeah.
Things haven't been managed, appropriately, and a marriage breaks down because of it.
Exactly. And I think, this is why I try to get to couples earlier. But if it has got to this stage, I think it's just trying to make it as smooth as possible, really.
Of course. And that's it. I mean, just from me, I've obviously sat and listened to the entire presentation you've given. I've just taken some of my own notes. I mean, the 8 money types is, an eye-opener for someone like me. Because I think me and my wife are the complete opposite ends of the spectrum now.
Yes.
She'll probably call me the fool, but that's probably not because of a money type.
I think the thing to think about as well, and people find this useful to hear, is that we have the dynamics between money types. So like I said, it's very rare that you see a balanced financial responsibility in a relationship. Very, very rare. Mm. So what we tend to have a warrior and an innocent. That's where we start. Oh, he's great with he or she is great with money. They, we use all these pronouns now. They're great with money. I don't need to do it. I can just get on with it, and it'll be taken away. The warrior, because of the nature of where they are, they want the other person to be involved. That's where they start from. I want you to be involved. Can you be involved? Oh, but this one, the innocent, is innocent for a reason. That's why it's running the show, from whatever, that they've been told that they're stupid with money, or they're not very good with money, or whatever. And they tend to shrink away because they're being taught something. It's a bit like your husband teaching you to drive, right? So the warrior will then, what happens then is warrior will then move into martyr. And it'll start to become a little bit resentful, because it's like, if I don't do it, who else is going to do it? And yet you keep spending, and I'm the one that's got to sit here and try and work it all out. That then pushes innocent into victim. So they then get into victim. So you've now got a martyr-victim dynamic, which is already sounding quite unpleasant. So absolutely. victim is even, I'm terrible. Oh, he shouts at me. Oh, I can't buy that because he's going to, ha, ha, ha. But I'll, all that kind of stuff. And then if it gets much worse, martyr can then very much turn into tyrant. And what will happen with tyrant is there'll start to be secrecy, tucking money away in cupboards where, in bank accounts where they don't see it, etc., etc. And hence you're then on a path to wherever. So I'm very well aware that that's already possibly happened. So from teaching the non-violent communication framework, which the healthy communication framework, what we're trying to do is we're trying to take two people to a neutral space. And there's a quote by Rumi, the old ancient poet, who says, "Out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there." And it would be lovely if that field was your office.
Absolutely right. I've said this in every one of these I've done so far. The last thing I want to do is make it worse for everybody. Right? The reality is, if you've got children, you have to then go to their weddings in years to come and all that kind of stuff. So I'd much rather navigate this as quickly, as reasonably and as fairly as possible.
Yeah.
So because we're coming up close to the end, let's get through a few questions.
Yeah. And if you send them to me, I can answer them as well.
Absolutely. And that goes for me as well. So don't feel that this is the closed end. So
yeah.
One of the questions was just about what are the options if someone is struggling to get information from their partner. Probably more for me. I think that family mediation is always a good way forward because at the very least, the mediator can explain you are going to have to be open with everything that you've got. And if that's not an option, I think someone might have sort of mentioned narcissism, then unfortunately legal advice is the way to go. Sometimes a little bit of strength, from someone like myself, you're going to have to do this whether you like it or not. You can't just refuse. You can't just bury your head in the sand. You're going to have to engage. So not everyone's cup of tea, legal advice. I get that, but there is a very good reason why we're needed. We can give you those options. We can guide you through that process. And their refusal to be reasonable doesn't mean much when someone like myself gets involved and we can get this where it needs to be.
Yeah.
I think that, all of the communication in the world is not going to help you at that point. So unfortunately, you've got to the point where legal advice is probably the best advice I can give you.
Yeah.
Um,
I can see a question up here which says, question for the host at the end, any quick wins to save money? And I'm totally overwhelmed. Where do I start? I think the place to start is if you don't know what you're spending, you can't really work out what you can save.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, I'll tell you from my personal experience, my wife and I have an Excel spreadsheet, right? And I can go back 10 years. There's little tabs at the bottom, maternity leave 1, maternity leave 2, Ashley changed job. You can see our financial history. But
yeah,
when I look at it and I go, right, this is exactly how much I put in the joint account. This is how much we're going to spend on this, that, and the other. And it then leaves us with a nice amount to spend on whatever we want without control from the other person or
yeah.
worrying about it because everything else is covered. It's like it just gives you that freedom. So I couldn't have agreed more with that point.
I
And
think though, for those people, if you feel completely overwhelmed and you don't know
mm,
what to do,
mm,
so one, think about what money type's in the room.
yes,
It's probably going to be the innocent. So you need to call in your warrior. And you
mm,
want to be saying to yourself, so what can I do to work out how I can save? So I can save, well, what about if I look at what I've spent in the last 6 months? Or even if that's too overwhelming, say the last 4 weeks. And if you
absolutely.
can see 15 visits to Starbucks, there's one. If you can see that your Sky bill is £330 a month, etc., it's just looking at those nips and tucks that you can make. Some people say to me, well, I'm going to cancel all those things. And I say, well, hang on. You need to try and work out what's saving and what really is saving. So for instance, I'll give you a perfect example. Cancelling Netflix when you've got a family of kids is not a wise decision if it holds you back from, if it keeps you from, when you can keep you away from the cinema. Now I know it's lovely going to the cinema, but you could all sit in front of a film on Netflix, all have a bucket of popcorn and save yourself 50 quid.
And
Right?
that's completely correct. In my scenario, it's Disney Plus. I think if I'd cancelled Disney Plus, I think my wife would never let me move back in the house again.
There you
And you
go.
just think,
So exactly. So it's working out what's the. I've got a gym membership, 25.99. I keep on trying to get myself to go. It's coming to the point now where I'm going either go or cancel it.
right, right.
You
And
know?
then in this job, and I'll lead it back into the point you said about cash. Just because you're going through a divorce or a breakup does not mean you have to stop spending the money the way you have. Right?
No.
Excessive spending, yes. That someone like me has to go through your bank statements for a calendar year and figure out what you're spending money on. And if you are wasting it here, there, and everywhere, I'm going to ask you what's going on. But if you're
Right.
going a little bit of Amazon spending, Netflix, gym membership, am I going to be able to justify that and say that's unreasonable? No, I'm not.
No.
And the cash point, just to clarify that, you were so spot on. Because if you're going to take cash out, I don't just see £30 here, £30 there. What I will do is spend the entire year and count up exactly how much you've taken out in cash.
Yeah.
So cash is you're going to have to account for it. It is not a case of, oh, it's out, it's mine. I can go through and go, okay, it's £20 here, £20 there. But I've had cases where it's come up to £8,000 over the course of
Oh,
a year.
seriously. Seriously. And I mean, but again, money saving tips. Get yourself onto moneysavingexpert.com website. They send out a newsletter once a week, all sorts of things. Watch Martin Lewis on the television. He is the man saving, money saving expert. Does what it says on the tin. He's the most trusted man in the UK. So watch him. And he's going to tell you things like, don't pay your car insurance in monthly, but then that's going to really help your credit score. But then it's going to be cheaper if you do it all in one go. Get your car insurance quoted between 21 and 26 days before renewal, because for some reason the algorithm is going to make it 20% less expensive.
Yeah.
Those kind
and
of
this
things.
information is, it's out there. You're right, Fanny. It's all
Yeah, and if you're feeling overwhelmed, okay, I want to just put this in here. For any of you that are feeling overwhelmed, I use a model called, and again, we're talking about a venture, navigating the 7 C's to financial freedom. And financial freedom for me is not being wealthy. It's about putting your head on the pillow every night, knowing that you're doing the best you can with what you've got and with a plan to try and make things better in the future. Okay? Keep things going, or, keep things growing. So the 7 C's go like this. And they must go in this order. If you approach everything with curiosity, it allows you to wonder what might happen if. I wonder what might happen if I take a peek at Martin Lewis. Not, God, I need to learn. I'm going to have to watch something. I'm going to have to do something. Just, you don't have to pluck up all this courage. Just start with curiosity, because then a little bit of courage can come next. So curiosity followed by courage, followed by self-compassion, which means that if everything's starting to go wrong, you can go, okay, this was difficult. Let's just step back for a minute. Or, whoa, this is brilliant. Let's step forward. This is good. So curiosity, courage, compassion. Add into the mix commitment that you want to do this. And then some consistency that you do things regularly. Get onto Money Hub and look at it daily while you're having your coffee. Start tagging transactions. And then feel yourself becoming clear. The clarity will come. And as you start to get clear on things, your confidence will rise. It will, I promise you. Rinse and repeat. Use that for life, and it'll work.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Now, what I will quickly get to is just one question, because there's one in the Q&A specific section. Is it best to put all your eggs in one basket regarding division of assets? Example being, one person keeps the family home and the other one keeps the rental portfolio. And then that's followed up by, is it better to downsize to a flat versus a house living in London in order to reduce mortgage payments? I think the first part is too general for me to give you just a very quick answer. I think that, is it best for one person to keep the house and then the other keep the rental portfolio? That depends on what you want. If you want to keep the house and that's your goal, and you don't have to worry about the headache that comes with the rental and the landlord and being the landlord and all that kind of thing, and then maybe not having the lump sum to rehouse yourself, then yes. But it's too wide of a question, I'm afraid, for me to be able to say, definitely, this is what you should do.
And I think what you're sort of chucking it back at them a little bit, which is fair. You've got to think about how you feel.
Absolutely.
I mean, Absolutely. I put people's debts into a snowball debt destroyer, and it seems perfectly logical for me that we'll pay off the most expensive debt first. Yeah. But there are times when somebody's gone, yeah, but I want to pay that B. I've got to get that person out of my head. Yeah, so we shift them to and there's no interest on the debt. No. But we have to bring it up to the beginning because it's the one that's the most important to them. It's not financially logical, but that's an extreme example. But you have to consider how you feel.
Absolutely. And looking at that scenario specifically, you walk away with the rental properties, maybe. Does that give you a lump sum to then buy something for yourself? I don't know. Does that mean you're going to have to rent, which means that you're then living off the income, but your partner then keeps the house, has the stability, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, what's the yield on the property? I mean, it's a million.
And then obviously you can't take them as on their own. You have to look at the
No,
entire matrimonial pot. So there's pensions, there's everything else to consider. So
exactly.
in that
Exactly.
question, I think bear in mind Stowe offers sometimes a free initial appointment with a solicitor. If you want to go through that in a bit more detail, call up. You know, I'll happily take that for you. I've got no problem discussing that in a bit more detail. And then in terms of downsizing to a flat versus a house, that depends. Are you already separated? Are you still living together? It's you know, am I always going to advise you to downsize? No, because it's completely based on what your asset base is. But again, it needs probably more of a specific answer on a bit more information. So again, it's the
And
same person. Please call up, book an appointment with me. I'll quite happily go through that with you.
and you know, these questions, wouldn't it be just great to just talk it through with somebody from beginning to end? And you know, again, of that could be me if you wanted it to be me, but maybe you've got a friend or a relative that you can just go, can you just give me an hour of your time to just bash this out? Because I can't seem to make a decision. That is magician. That is magician, because
Yeah.
and it's warrior together, because you can't see your own blind spots, and you're recognizing that you can't see your own blind spots. Hooray to you. So take it one step further and ask for some help from somebody.
Couldn't agree more, Fanny. Thank you so much for your time this evening. It has been massively informative. I can't thank you enough.
If anybody wants to, I'll just put my. If anybody wants to WhatsApp me, I'll put that in the chat. If anybody's interested in my money makeover, I've literally got 3 places left for this one, and if not, the next one will be sort of around the end of the year. But it'll be great, but just for ladies only this time. I'm very, very sorry.
Yeah, thank you for.
But I'm always here for power hours, you know, or little strategy sessions. More than willing to help.
Well, thank you so much, Fanny. You've been absolutely
Thank you
fantastic.
for having me.
And I'm sure you'll be back again. I've got no doubt. So for now, I just want to sign off. My name is Ashley. This was Stowe Talks. And thank you all for attending, and hope you found it informative.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.